Good day, everyone. So, for today's video, I'm going to introduce myself. I am Ichel Elistanel, and for today's video, I'm going to discuss about animal cells and tissues. So, the cell theory states that all living organisms are made up of cells. Cells are the basic structural and functional units of life. Cells differ in size, shape, and function. These variations are correlated with the functions they perform. According to the structure, cells are generally classified either as prokaryotic or eukaryotic. According to function, animal cells are either somatic or reproductive. Multicellular organisms are made up of several cells. Cells that perform the same function are called tissue. Cells of a tissue may be of several kinds. Tissues are in turn grouped together to form organs. Organs group together to form a system, and all this comprise an organism. So here are the objectives about the animal cells and tissues. So number one is to identify commonly visible parts of animal cell. So probably is i-identify nato ang mga parts sa animal cell. So number two, describe the major parts of cells and their functions. So atong A, describe ang mga functions and parts of cells. And number three is to identify and describe characteristics of animal tissues. So, sa tulo is we commonly identify the parts of a cell, and number 3 is to describe the characteristics. So, number 1, so naay 4 kinds sa somatic tissues. So by the way, somatic tissues are the cells in the body other than sperm and egg cells, or which are called germ cells. In humans, somatic cells are diploid, meaning they contain 2 sets of chromosomes, one inherited from each parent. So, muna ang sa somatic tissues, inherited sa imuhang mga parents. And number 1 is epithelial tissues. So, epithelial tissues, take note of the compact arrangement of cells. Compact arrangement of cells and presence of basement membrane. Notice this thin and permeable membrane that binds the epithelium together and separates it from the underlying connective tissue. So observe carefully if the focused epithelium is composed of one layer of cells or simple, or 2 or more layers, or stratified. So under close inspection, you will notice that epithelial tissues have no blood. No? So have no blood. The epithelial tissues have no blood. Since they are avascular, nutrients and oxygen are supplied through diffusion from underlying tissues. Yes, so observe the following simple epithelia. So here are the 3 that we observe the following simple of epithelia. Number 1, take note of the thin, flat, and irregularly shaped cells. They line the heart, blood, and lymphatic vessels, body cavities, and alveoli or air sacs of the lungs. Examine a prepared slide or simple squamous epithelium or whole mount. Under the which means the LPO is lipid peroxidation. So, ang HPO and identify all visible parts. So, HPO is Human Phenotype Ontology. So, mao na siya ang sa simple squamous epithelium. And letter B is simple rhomboidal epithelium. So, examine a prepared slide of a kidney tubule. Use the human or HPO to closely examine the wall of the tubules. Take note of the cube shape. So, example sa kidney, tungaon na siya ginamay and then ibutang sa katong sa slide. And then cube shape cells that line the kidney tubules. So this type of cells can also be seen lining the ovaries and secretory parts of certain glands. So letter C is simple columnar epithelium. So examine the slide of the frog's small intestine or stomach. Under the LPO, locate the finger-like folds called villi of the small intestine. These folds are lined with columnar cells. Look for elogenated cells with no nucleus, generally near the bottom and often dilated on the outer surface. So, turn to HPO and carefully examine individual columnar cells of the villi and identify all visible parts. So, that the ma-observe na to sa epithelia. So, number 2, connective tissue. Carefully observe the features of this tissue that makes it bind parts together, fill in spaces, and provide support for other types of tissue. So notice that these tissues have fewer cells but with more intercellular substance or matrix or ground substance than the epithelial tissues. So the matrix is variable in type and amount. So muna siya ang matrix. So sa connective tissues, it is one of the differentiating features of the various types of connective tissues. So in invertebrates, connective tissue proper includes both loose connective tissue composed of fibers and fixed and withering cells suspended in a syrupy ground substance and dense connective tissue or tendons and ligaments are largely composed of tightly packed fibers. Other types of connective tissue include the vascular tissues, blood and lymph and tissue fluid. Vascular tissue is found in a fluid ground substance called the plasma. So far, mao na ang the explanation for connective tissue. Letter A is for cartilage. So, we tackle kung unsa ang cartilage. Cartilage is a semi-rigid connective tissue embedded in a gel-like matrix. Examine a cross-section of a hyaline cartilage under LPO and HPO. So far, nakabulong tag-unsa ang LPO o HPO. So, LPO is lipid peroxidation og ang sa HPO is human phenotype ontology. So mao na siya. So look for these parts. So chondrocrites or chondriocytes or cartilage cells man na siya. And ang ikaduha is lacunae circular or lacuna, cavities containing the cartilage cells. So ang atong i-explain kung unsa ang bone or osseous tissue. Examine the cross-section of the bone under the LPO. Carefully observe the different structures and their arrangement. Take note of the classified matrix with calcium salts organized around collagen fibers arranged in concentric rings or lamella. Under human phenotype ontology, focus a single Hofferson system and identify all the parts. Mana siya. Number 1 is osteocytes or bone cells. Mana siyang meaning bone cells is osteocytes. So laconi is cavities where bone cells are lodged. Canal call, small canals that interconnect the lacunae to distribute the cellular materials. Haversian canal, the central canal with blood supply, vascular. Muna siyang supplies. And then Hostion or Haversian system, entire elongated slender unit of the rings. The osteon is the structural and functional unit of a bone. So far, mara na punta sa blood. So blood, take note that fresh specimen, this tissue is made up of fluid portion or plasma. And the form elements, cells, corpuscles, and fragments. These cells or red blood corpuscles. Number 2, leukocytes or white blood cells like sa mga babayi nga naay mugawas. And then thrombocytes or blood platelets. So, examine a prepared slide of a human blood smear and a frog blood smear. Focus them under the LPO and HPO. LPO is lipid peroxidation o human phenotype ontology. Take note of the differences in terms of shape and size of cells and the presence of absence of a nucleus in each cell. So, C, adipose. So, what is adipose? Examine a prepared slide of adipose tissue. So, kani siya is, naani siya sa laboratory. So, if naatay video, og unsa ni siya, makita nato kung unsa ang naa sa adipose. Examine a prepared slide of adipose tissue under the LPO and HPO. Look for large soap bubbles-like structures. So, gina-explain na siya, or signet rings with nucleus and cytoplasm. Push to one side. This is loose connective tissue that stores lipid. cushions, supports, and insulates organs, and acts a filler tissue. So, number 3 na ta. Number 3 is for muscle tissue. Mo ni siya ang kaning bone, cartilage, blood, adipose, sa connective tissue. Di siya. And then, muscle tissues. Observe that muscle is composed of elongated cells called muscle fibers, specialized for contraction. This specialized function or contraction is exclusive for muscle tissues. Muscles are the most common tissue in the body of higher animals. Now, A. So, skeletal muscle tissue. A secure prepared slide of a striated skeletal or elongated cells muscle fibers. So, mana siya ang skeletal muscle tissue. With atong ginagamit is lipid prediction, ontology, o human phenotype ontology. Muscle fibers or muscle cell, elongated and branched and multinucleated fibers. So, mana siya ang dark and light bands. So, cardiac muscle tissue. The cardiac muscle tissue examines the cross-section of the cardiac muscle under the LPO and HPO. Note the light and dark bands like those exhibit in skeletal muscles. Observe that the fibers seem to be anastomos with the adjacent ones, or etc. Interconnecting branch fibers and the intervals along the fibers find the thin, dark, intercalated just which is characteristics of the cardiac muscle. So far, muna siya ang sa cardiac muscle tissue. So, letter C is most of visceral muscle tissue. So, examine a cross-section of a frog's stomach under the LPO. Move the slide to the cellular layer of muscle. Using the human phenotype ontology, focus on a spindle-shaped fiber which has a nucleus at the center of the widest portion of the cell body. Number 4. So number 4 is, this is the last parts of the epithelial tissue. Nervous tissues. So the nervous is made up of 2 elements, neuron or nerve cell and neural and cells. So neural cells. Neurons are concerned with no transmission of impulses, specialized to receive and transmit impulses one part of the body to the other parts. So sa usa ka body, sa lain na sad nga parts. Refer to the figure of a neuron. Take note of the following parts. So, number 1, his cell body contains the nucleus and the thread-like process. Number 2, neurolemma or cell membrane. Dendrites, the process that conduct impulse towards the cell body. And the last, axon, conducts impulse towards from the cell body. So, muna ang cell tissue. So, reproductive tissue. Reproductive tissue is the reproductive cells are produced by the gonads. The male gonads or testes produce the spermatozoa. Spermatozoa or sperm cells. So mo ni siya ang reproductive system is for sa atuon nga sa laki. The female gonads or ovaries produce the ovum or egg cell. So, A. Ovum or egg cell. Examine the LPO, the frog's ovary. Focus 1 fluid with cells at different stages of development and take note of the following parts. So, muna siya. Oxide, zona, and muna siya. So, letter B, spermatozoa or sperm cells. Head contains the nucleus with the genetic materials. Acrosome, cup-like, and found at the anterior portion of the head of a sperm. And then the mitochondria, medullpiece, flagellum or tool. Along with life mo na siya. So, that's all. Thank you. And napa ni siya lain nga mga about sa mga laboratory. So, thank you.